Hello friends, in this video we are going to be talking about java.lang out of memory error, unable to create new native threads. Friends, in the previous videos we discussed about 9 different types of out of memory error. Here the 6th type of out of memory error is unable to create new native threads. This type of out of memory error happens when your JVM starts to create a lot of threads, right? When it starts to create a lot of threads and there is no more room to create new thread. That's when you're going to confront this unable to create new native threads. Since I don't know, see, sometimes we may have, I have a friend, he keeps saying me the same joke every time whenever we meet, and he expects us to laugh. Similarly, sometimes our application may end up creating a same type of threads, keep on creating, and then after a point, when your memory gets saturated, you confront this error. When this type of error happens, typically for other types of out of memory error, we look at the garbage collection log and then we look at the heap dump to troubleshoot it. Whereas here, those artifacts are not going to be helpful because the leak is happening at the threads layer. Taking a heap dump is not going to show us the problem. So what you want to do is when you confront this type of out of memory error, you want to take a thread dump, right? How do you take thread dump? I think there is actually 9 different options to take the thread dump. Here are those 9 different options. The link for this is going to be shared with you. The first option, which is one of the favorite option for me, is using this open source script. There's an open source script. So to this script, you just need to pass the process ID, your Java process ID. When you trigger it, the script is going to capture you a 360-degree data from the application. Like it's going to capture the GC log, thread dump, heap dump, and the system level artifacts, the kernel logs, application. We're going to capture all of them and bundle them into a zip file. Because when there is a performance problem is happening, it could happen because of any reason. So having all the data is going to facilitate us to get to the root cause. This is one option. The second option is you can use for the JStack tool, right? It is a tool which is available in the JDK. You just need to say JStack-L and give the name of your process ID and pipe it to a file path. Then this thread dump is going to be captured and then return into this file path. Or you can use this kind of a JCMD tool, which is another tool available for us to take a thread dump. And then there's also other 9 options which is available. I'm not going to go into the details of it. So once you take a thread dump, you want to analyze it. But before that, what is a thread dump? So thread dump is basically a snapshot of all the threads which is running in your application, right? It shows what are the threads running, what is the stack trace, what is the thread state of it. It gives all this information. So when we are troubleshooting this java.lang out of memory error, unable to create new native thread, we need to take this thread dump and we want to analyze it. To analyze it, there are some tools available in the internet, but one of the tools that I would recommend using it is the fastThread tool. So there is a free tier. What you can do is you can sign into the free tier and then you can upload the thread dump. So once you upload a thread dump, you're going to see the result. The tool analyze the thread dump and it's going to generate a report instantly. So friends, for our discussion, I have gotten a real thread dump of a real enterprise which suffered from this problem in production environment, right? So this is a middleware platform. What happened was this middleware platform, as we know, it connects with various system of records, multiple system of records. And the availability of the middleware has to be very high, right? If middleware goes down, none of the business unit application works, none of the lines of business works, none of your channels work, right? So the availability of middleware is extremely critical. So this middleware started to become unresponsive and it started to throw this java.lang out of memory error, unable to create new native threads. So thread dump that was captured from that application is what we're going to be looking at. So now let's look into the thread dump. Okay. So this is that analysis report. Once you uploaded a thread dump, you're going to see. So this report has a lot of sections, but what you want to be focusing on is where you see this kind of the error icon or this warning icon. Here you can see this application is having like 1,859 threads. Typically it has only around like 300 threads. This is like 6 times more. The threads have been created. The team didn't know why. And now if you see the analysis, it gives a lot of information. But let's focus on where it says this warning icon. Here is a warning icon. It's reported here in the section called threads with identical stack trace. So friends, what happens here is this tool tries to group the threads which has the identical stack traces and their count. So here you can see it has grouped, like there is like 1,700 plus threads. They all have the identical stack trace in this group. Why the tool is doing it? See, whenever there is any bottleneck in the application, or whenever something gets stuck in the application, all the threads will go and then they will start it on that bottleneck. So they tend to have a very identical stack trace. So that is what is going on here. You can see there's 1,700 threads. More than 95% of the threads in this application is having the exact identical stack trace. So let's click on it. Here is all those 1,700 plus threads. Look at the stack trace. The stack trace is indicating, you can see it is originating from this Oracle package, Oracle ONS receiver thread. So what had happened was this database vendor, recognizing this is a middleware platform and this is of a very, very major institution. It's a very critical institution in North America, right? So they told to this middleware team, guys, why don't you enable this flag called as ONS, Online Notification Service, to be true in your JDBC driver? So when you set this flag to be true in your JDBC driver in your middleware, it's connecting with the Oracle RAC cluster. If in Oracle RAC cluster any one node has an outage, right? If it has any problem, immediately the very next transaction will be routed to the other active node in the cluster. So your availability will be very high. So then this middleware team also enabled that flag ONS to be true. But contrary happened to what this vendor told. What happened was, whenever any backend call was made, a new thread was spawned, a new thread was created, and it never got terminated. So thus this application ended up with this like 1,700 plus threads. When this dump was taken, when this report was taken and shown to this the database vendor, then they acknowledge, oh, it looks like there's a bug in our JDBC driver, so that is causing the threads to be leaked, right? So then what they gave is they made a patch to the JDBC driver, and then they gave it, and the team, once they upgraded the JDBC library, then this problem went away, right? Okay, so now let's take a step back. Let's recap what we discussed here. What causes this java.lang out of memory error unable to create new native threads? Whenever the threads are leaking in your application, that's when you're going to see this error. What are the potential solutions to address this problem? First solution is take a thread dump and see whether there's any thread leak is happening. If so, then fix the thread leak. Second, possible solution is, friends, in the kernel level, there is a setting which says only each process can create only these number of threads. There is a kernel level setting. Sometimes say it is set to a very aggressive level. In the kernel setting says you can create only 500 threads. Maybe if your application needs more threads than that, then also you're going to get this error, out of memory error, unable to create new native threads. In that case, you need to increase the kernel level thread limit. That is another issue. The third solution is, see, as we discussed in our very first video, the threads are created in the native region, right? So that means, what if there is some other processes, not your application? There's a cron job that is running, and that cron job starts to chew up the memory. Or let's say there is some kind of a homegrown script you're deployed, and that script starts to consume memory. When that script starts to consume memory, that means there's a less memory left for your Java process to create threads. So it could be, there may not be any problem in your application. There could be, you can have an impact. You can confront this out of memory error because of a neighbors that is running on your container or on your machine, on your servers. If a neighbor starts to chew memory, consume more memory, then you are left with less memory, then you are going to get this error. In that circumstance, you may want to increase the RAM capacity. Our typical response to out of memory error is increase the XMX, right? That's what we typically do. But in this case, if you tend to increase the XMX, you are actually worsening the problem. Because look at this. The XMX only governs this heap size, right? Young generation, old generation size. You want to go back to our first video where we talk about different regions. It only looks at the XMX only sets this heap size. And if you try to increase this heap memory, let's say you're going to make this XMX, say set it as 4 GB. Let's say you make it as 10 GB. This is a typical response to out of memory error. Make it as 10 GB, and look what's going to happen. This heap memory size is going to grow bigger. That means you're going to be left with even less native memory. That means you are going to confront this out of memory error fairly even quickly. You would worsen the problem by increasing the XMX when you have this java.lang out of memory error, unable to create new native thread. So the other choice can be you can reduce your stack size, the thread stack size, XSS. Say suppose your thread stack size, each thread you set, the thread stack size is set as 1 MB. Okay, I'm just making it up. That means if say your application is creating like 1,000 threads, that means 1,000 multiplied by 1 MB, you need like 1,000 MB. That is 1 GB of space, right? But what if you reduce a thread stack size to 512 kilobytes instead of 1 MB? That means if you try to reduce your individual thread stack size to 512 kilobytes, that means say suppose then your application is trying to create 1,000 threads. Now it needs only 512 MB. It just needs half a GB. It does not need 1 GB. So when you reduce your stack size, you can create more threads that can also address this problem. But one thing what you want to be taking into account is if you reduce your XSS to be very small, you may start to confront stack overflow error. Okay. What is the artifact that you need to troubleshoot this type of a problem? You need a thread dump. And what is a tool that you need to analyze the thread dump? You need tools like a fastThread, or you can just open a text editor and look at it. But it can be a little bit cumbersome, right? To group the threads, what are the stack trays to do? It's going to be a little bit cumbersome to do. So you want to can consider using these kind of tools, thread dump analysis tools. Okay, thank you very much, friends. Talk to you later.